My name is Joe. Let me tell you a story about a scary night. I live in a house that's far from the city, surrounded by a big forest. There aren't many houses near mine. It was one of those nights when I was by myself. My parents were gone because of work, and my brother Tom was at a friend's place. Feeling bored, I started watching some horror movies. After a while, I thought it'd be fun to have some company. So I called my pals. Let's call them A and C to keep their names private. When A and C came over, we watched a cool horror movie. It was super fun. Once the movie was over, we decided to get some fresh air and went out to my balcony. The air was a bit cold and it felt refreshing. As we were chatting, we suddenly heard a strange noise from the forest direction. C thought it'd be a good idea to grab a light to see better, so he went inside. A and I stayed out, trying to figure out where the noise came from. But then things got weird. We started hearing quick footsteps. It sounded like they were coming from all around us. It was pitch black outside, with only a small light from my house. Both A and I froze, hearing the footsteps get louder and closer. Suddenly I shouted, "Let's get inside now!" Without wasting any time, we rushed into the house, shutting the door behind us. C came running from the other room, looking confused. We quickly told him what happened. Just as we were explaining, loud banging noises started, first on the back door, then on the front door, and even the garage. It felt like several people were trying to get in. We were super scared. How could someone be in the garage? We never heard it open. And now there were knocking sounds on all the doors at the same time. We didn't want to take any chances. All three of us rushed upstairs to the safest place we could think of, my parents' big closet. We stayed there, hoping the intruders would leave. As we hid in the closet, I grabbed my phone and quickly called the police. The person on the other end said, "Don't worry, we're already coming. Your neighbors called us." They told me some neighbors saw 3 men with masks coming out of different parts of the forest and rushing toward our house. These men had been running around, banging on doors and windows. After talking to the police, I called my brother Tom to tell him what was happening. But as I was talking, we heard a loud crash from downstairs. It sounded like broken glass. And then there was laughter. 3 different voices laughing. Fear filled me, and tears started running down my face. I thought this might be the end for us. Both A and C looked scared too. Their eyes were wet, and we held on to each other tightly. But just as we heard footsteps coming up the stairs, we also heard the welcome sound of police sirens. Those same footsteps then quickly ran back down. Suddenly, we heard a loud voice shout, "Police! Hands in the air!" A moment later, a kind officer opened the closet door. He told us it was safe now. They had caught 2 of the 3 masked men. When we walked downstairs, I saw the 2 captured men. They looked mean and had creepy smiles. It was clear they were having fun doing this. I felt sick just looking at them. I asked about the 3rd man, and the officers said he ran back into the forest and they were still looking for him. Our helpful neighbor came to check on us. I couldn't thank her enough for calling the police in time. Shortly after, my brother Tom arrived and A and C's parents came to get them. Because the 3rd man was still out there, we decided to stay at C's house for the whole week, especially since our parents weren't coming back until the end of the week. A week went by. When our parents finally returned, we discovered all our windows were broken. Oddly, nothing was stolen. We called the police to see if they found any clues or fingerprints, but they didn't find anything useful. A little later, some good news came. My dad told us he got a better job, so we'd be moving to the city. He would be able to work from home, and it felt safer with more people around. This scary event will always be in my memory. Both my friends and I never want to experience something like that ever again. Back in 2008, when I was 13, I had a super scary experience. Now I'm 27 years old and a girl. Even though it's been years, I can recall that day like it was just last week. Back then, I lived in a city called Springfield, and it was a cold January morning. The night before, there was a huge snowstorm, so my school decided not to open. That day, I was all by myself at home. My father, Tom, and my stepmother, Jane, both had to go to work. My little sis, Lucy, was at a babysitter's place, and my older brother, Jake, had an appointment with a tooth doctor. My dad, Tom, worked in a garden job. Sometimes, if he was nearby, he'd come home during the day for a quick meal. That's why, when I heard some noises from below, where our basement was, I just thought it was Dad, maybe getting something. But when I got up and started walking towards the staircase leading downstairs, I got this weird, creepy feeling. For some reason, I decided to whisper, "Dad? Is that you?" No answer. I tried to stay calm and went to check from the small window at the front door. Outside, I saw two guys walking up the snowy path towards our backyard. Later, I found out there was a third guy, and he was the one making the noise I heard. He was breaking the window in the basement, right below my bedroom. I was scared and rushed back to my room, hiding in my closet, and called my mom, Lisa. When she picked up, I quickly explained what was happening. She was worried but thought maybe I was just being overly anxious, so she called Jake to check on me. After speaking to her, I called the emergency number, 911. The lady who answered sounded like she wasn't sure if I was telling the truth. She kept asking if I was sure about what I was saying. But as we were talking, I heard the loud steps of those men rushing upstairs. The lady's tone changed. She sounded more serious and concerned. She asked if I was safe, and I said I was in my room's closet, but I couldn't close it properly because of all the stuff I'd thrown inside. The intruders were talking in our living room. I couldn't understand them, but soon they were trying to break into my parents' room next door. One of them even walked into my room, peeked inside, and left. Maybe he realized there wasn't anything valuable in a kid's room. Then one of the guys shouted, "Someone's back, we gotta go!" And I heard them running. Here's something about our old house. The windows were the type you have to turn a handle to open. We had a front door that was jammed and couldn't open, so we placed a sofa in front of it. Instead, we used a side door, but it had a weird lock that needed a key even from inside. Only Lucy didn't have a key. So these guys had no choice but to leave from the basement window they'd broken earlier, especially with whatever they were trying to take. The emergency lady informed me that cops were around our house and I could come out. It took me a while to be brave enough to leave my hiding spot. I wasn't sure if those men were truly gone. When I finally felt brave enough to leave my hiding spot, I took my key and quickly went to the side door to let the police in. I looked around, but my brother wasn't there. I was worried. Had something happened to him? Or was it someone else who came to the door? Just after I let the police in, my brother walked in from the dining room. I was so relieved. I quickly went over to him and hugged him tightly, more than I ever had. The police wanted to know everything. My brother explained his side. He said he came to the side door like he always does. But as he was about to use his key, he saw one of the intruders through the window. This man then showed a gun and threatened him. My brother was so scared he couldn't move for a bit. But then he ran to our neighbors, knocking on doors, hoping someone would help. At one house, a little girl opened the door. He asked her for her mom. When her mom came, he explained everything quickly, telling her about the men in our house and that I was still inside. The lady immediately called the police. My brother then called our grandparents to let them know I wasn't making up stories. The police later showed us one of the men they caught. They wanted my brother to confirm he was the one with the gun. He did. I was so relieved that these bad men were caught. Soon after, our grandparents and mom came. They hugged me tight. My mom informed my dad, who hurried home with my stepmom. I was shaken, so my dad let me stay with my mom for a while. I even skipped school for a few days. A week later, the town invited us to a ceremony. They praised me for my bravery, giving me a certificate and a gift bag full of fun girl stuff. I felt proud and thankful for the support. About a month later, we had to go to court. We met another family there. They too had been robbed by these same men. In their case, the robbers had even taken one of the ladies' guns. We found out that these men had 3 guns, but only one was loaded. I was nervous and didn't want to see those men in court. Thankfully, the judge let us wait outside. At the end of the trial, 2 men got 7 years in jail, while the third, who threatened my brother, got 12. Years have passed since then. The men are out of jail now. For a bit, I was scared they might come back because my dad still lives in that house, but nothing has happened. I've heard of homes being robbed, but never thought it had happened to me. I'm grateful I knew what to do and that those men never knew I was hiding in the house. Who knows what they might have done if they had found me. It was 1994, and I was 15 years old. My friend Becky wanted me to sleep over at her place. That night, her parents were going to celebrate their wedding anniversary, so they would be out. Her sister also had plans and was sleeping over at another friend's house, so Becky would be home alone, and she didn't want to be by herself. After school on that Friday, I went to Becky's house. Let me explain how her house looked. When you reached the house, there was a big driveway. This driveway didn't have a garage, but it had something like a covered parking space called a carport. From the driveway, you could walk straight to the front door of the house. Also, from the carport, there was another door that led directly into the kitchen. The house had 2 floors. If you entered from either the front door or the kitchen door, you would find yourself in the living room. From the living room, you could walk to the back of the house or go downstairs. Becky's bedroom and her sister's bedroom were both downstairs. This downstairs area was really big. It also had a laundry room. Now, if you went downstairs, the laundry room was on your left. If you turned right, you'd see a door made of sliding glass, and this door opened up to the garden outside. If you walked straight ahead instead, you would end up in Becky's bedroom. Next to Becky's bedroom was a big closet, and if you kept going to the left from the closet, you'd enter her sister's room. This entire downstairs area was like a big square starting and ending at the staircase. That evening, Becky and I were in her room having fun. We played some music and talked about our classmates and school stuff, like what many 15-year-olds did back in those days. I was lying down on Becky's bed, and my head was right next to the window. The window was at ground level. Out of nowhere, I felt a sudden jerk in my head and heard a weird sound outside. Becky saw that I was frightened. She quickly lowered the volume of the music and asked me what had happened. Just as she was asking, we both heard that weird sound again. We were both super scared. Without wasting any time, we ran to her sister's room and called the emergency number, 911. But then after calling, we felt maybe we had overreacted. Maybe it was just some random noise and nothing serious. However, the 911 operator called us back. We told them everything. Even though we felt silly, the operator decided to send a police officer to our house, just to be sure. They told us to stay safe. We quickly went upstairs, checked that all the doors and windows were locked, and waited for the officer to come and see if everything was okay. So, after the scare from before, Becky and I were too afraid to even go upstairs. The reason was the staircase was right by a big glass door. This door opened to the garden outside, and the scary part was it had no curtains. If anyone was in the garden, they could look straight in. Suddenly, we heard Becky's dog bark loudly outside. Becky's face changed, and she said that she had to get her dog inside from the garden. We were both super scared. Our eyes were wet from tears. I begged her not to open the door, but she loved her dog too much and was worried about its safety. Taking a deep breath, we went to the door. We opened it just a bit, quickly got the dog in, locked the door again, and ran upstairs as fast as our legs could take us. We found a spot in the kitchen to hide. I remember sitting on the floor trying to hide from the windows, praying that nobody outside could see me. After what felt like forever, car lights shone. We rushed to the door leading to the covered parking area, thinking it was the police. But it was Becky's parents. Just as they were stepping out of their car, a police car also pulled up. Becky's dad, seeing us in our terrified state, jokingly asked, "What did you girls do?" We quickly told him everything. The police officer then took out a flashlight to check around the house. Remember, it had rained a bit earlier that night. This meant the ground was still wet. So when the cop was checking, he found wet footprints. Some were near the front door and some were right next to Becky's window. We were in shock. That meant someone had really been trying to get in when we heard that weird sound. The officer couldn't find anyone around the house but told us to stay safe and call them if anything happened again. We thought the worst was over. But later, just as we were getting sleepy, we heard Becky's dog bark again. This time, it was loud and fierce. Becky's dad ran out into the garden with his shotgun, shouting loudly for someone to leave. Suddenly, a person jumped over the fence and ran into the nearby cemetery. Oh, I forgot to mention, Becky's house was right next to a cemetery. That was creepy on its own. We then found out that the intruder had been hiding in a storage shed in Becky's garden. We had no idea how long they were there or what they wanted. All Becky and I could do was look at each other, completely scared. We kept thinking, who was this person? Why did they run into the cemetery? What would have happened if they had actually got into the house while we were there? I still shiver when I think about it. This story took place when I was about 16, around 6 years ago. Let me explain how my house is set up so you can picture what happened. When you walk in through the main door, you step right into the living room. If you keep walking straight from the living room, there's a small hallway. In this hallway, if you look to your right, there's the kitchen. If you keep walking straight, you'll see stairs that lead to the second floor. Now, on your left in the hallway is a bathroom on the ground floor. When you walk up the stairs to the second floor, my room is right in front of you. To the left of my room is where my parents sleep, and to the right, there's another bathroom. I hope that gives you a clear picture of my house. Now let's get to the story. At that time, there was this crazy trend where people dressed up as clowns and scared people. I'm sure you've heard of it. So, one day my parents told me they were going on a trip to another state. I didn't really feel like joining them, so they left me at home. My dad even gave me his bank card to buy food and stuff. They planned to be away for about a week. On the fourth night they were gone, I was sitting in my room, watching the news. They were talking about another scary clown incident. I remember thinking, wow, these clown people are really going wild. A little later, I felt hungry, so I ordered some Chinese food. I took the food to my room and started watching some videos on YouTube while eating. Suddenly, while I was still eating, I heard a loud noise coming from downstairs. It sounded like something had broken. Since I had left the lights on, I went down to see what was going on. And you won't believe what I saw when I looked. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen. A guy was dressed like a clown. His costume was super dirty. And the worst part, he had a big knife in his hand. I quickly and quietly went to my parents' room upstairs and locked the door. I hid in the bathtub, hoping he wouldn't find me, and took out my phone to call the police. I could hear the clown guy downstairs opening and shutting doors, searching around. Soon, he began walking up the stairs. I was trying to be as silent as I could. The next thing I know, he's banging really hard on my parents' bedroom door. It was so scary, I thought I was going to cry. With no other option in mind, I decided to open the window and jump out. I didn't care if I got hurt, I just needed to get away. Once on the ground, I ran as fast as I could to my neighbor's house to ask for help. While I was running, I saw police cars coming down the street. I waved and shouted at them. They stopped, and I quickly told them about the clown with a knife in my house. The police rushed into my home, and after a little while, they caught him. They then called my parents, who returned home as fast as they could. Since that scary day, I almost never stay home alone. If my parents go somewhere, I usually go with them. I'm now 22, and that night still haunts my dreams. I often think about what could have happened if I didn't make the choice to jump, or if the police didn't arrive in time. As for the man dressed as a clown who scared me so much, I hope you realize how much pain and fear you caused. I'm still angry at you.